Hello, everybody. Good morning. Today is September 24th, 2025, and it's about just after 8:30 in the morning. So obviously, we have a new set of data that I want to share with you guys in regards to what is happening with the tropics as we speak. So this is the National Hurricane Center's website. As you guys can see, there's a few areas that we're watching. Obviously, right over here, we got Hurricane Gabriel. Hurricane Gabriel completely blew it out of the water as far as forecast goes. Nobody. I don't think almost nobody and no forecast models predicted it was going to make it to all the way up to a Category 4 hurricane, and it did. So obviously, it overachieved. Now the question here is, where is it going? Well, if you guys are keeping an eye on that now, the Azores Islands are actually under a hurricane warning. So it is expected to continue to keep the intensity of hurricane and affect and make landfall in the Azores Islands as a hurricane. Nothing major, but nevertheless as a hurricane. And this is something that it doesn't happen often. And as you guys can see, even making it all the way to Portugal, actually, as a tropical depression. So you guys in the Azores, keep an eye on this. Obviously, it's away from Bahamas at this. Not Bahamas, Bermuda at this point. Nothing to worry about there. But as we speak, this morning, it's moving east northeast at 25 miles per hour. So obviously, it's moving really fast, and it still has winds of 115 miles per hour. So decently strong for being that far out in the Atlantic. But again. You guys in the Azores Islands, keep an eye on this. Excuse me. Now let's go back to closer to home, and let's start off with this disturbance. The National Hurricane Center is giving an 80% chance of development within the next 7 days, and basically what they're saying is that the area is producing disorganized showers and thunderstorms. Is moving west northwest 15 to 20 miles, so it's moving fast. And it's spreading heavy rainfall and gusty winds in Puerto Rico, Virgin Islands today, and across the Dominican Republic beginning tonight. So it's just moving fast. Environmental conditions are forecast to become conducive for development in a few days, and a tropical depression is likely to form when the disturbing is in the vicinity of the Bahamas. Interest in the Virgin Islands, Puerto Rico, Dominican Republic, Turkey and Caicos, and the Bahamas should monitor this progress, or the progress of the system. Now, the good thing that we have going on is, first of all, it's moving fast. So the fact that it's moving fast, it means that if anything develops, it's going to move fast. So in other words, the impacts are not going to last too long. So that's a positive. The other thing is that it should give us a better idea of what is going to happen in the afternoon, or in general, in the future, I should say, is that this afternoon the hurricane hunters are going to fly and sample the environment to see the steering mechanisms. Where's the Bermuda High? If there's any other steering currents, any other, let's say, low pressure systems. Around this time of the year, you start getting troughs or cold fronts that start coming down from Canada, and that tends to weaken the high pressures and allow them to kind of curve out to sea. That's what they're going to investigate if that's going to happen. But you notice that so far, it's not showing. Let me go back here. It's basically not showing that it's coming towards this way, towards Florida. Now, that may change depending on what they find as far as the environment goes. But then let's look at the other area. So we have also this disturbance here, which has even higher chance of development, has a 90%. And this is like 90% within the next 2 days. So obviously it has a much better chance of forming, and that's who is most likely going to become the next tropical storm and get the name Umberto. Now, let's read what they're saying. Showers and thunderstorm activity associated with the elongated area of low pressure several hundred miles east of the Leeward Islands continue to show signs of organization. Environmental conditions are forecast to become favorable to further development, and a tropical depression is likely to form later today or Thursday. So later today or tomorrow, while the system moves west-northwestward to northwestward into the western tropical Atlantic. So this particular one here It's actually has a better potential of becoming a named storm, but also curving out to sea. So again, once again, you folks in the Bahamas need to be paying attention to this, as is again getting pretty close to you guys, depending how what the recurving happens. Now, if it kind of does a track like that, obviously that will be direct landfall. But is it going to curve out quicker? It doesn't look that way. It may do kind of like an errand and just kind of go in between the Outer Banks in North Carolina and Bermuda. So could it move further west? Absolutely, but it all depends again on how strong the Bermuda High is to block it and potentially have it moving further to the west. Now, let's take a look at the satellite imagery. Gabrielle, first of all, still holding on. I mean, pretty decent structure, and still holding on. And that's all I can say. So obviously, still has a potential to cause some damage in the Azores Islands, as I mentioned earlier. Now let's take a look at the Atlantic in general and see how the other two waves look in satellite. So let's go in here. Now that is the one that has the biggest potential. You can kind of see more convection, very lopsided still and elongated, how the National Hurricane Center did mention. And then we have the other area, which it looks like is this right here, this mess in here of thunderstorms and showers. So that is basically what is going to potentially get it closest to the United States, to the United States mainland. Now, depending if it stays weak enough, it will continue to move further west and get closer to the United States, but we'll see again. And there's always a possibility that it might not even form at all. I mean, we saw that already earlier in the season. Was early September, and the National Hurricane Center gave it a high probability of forming, and it completely fell apart. Nothing happened. So obviously, that's something that we need to watch. Now let's take a look at the forecast models and see what they're saying, what they're seeing, and predicting. So let's start with the GFS as usual. And this is as of this morning. We go forward, they start developing again, the one that has a higher chance of development right over here. And as we move forward, then at this point, it looks like in this last run that they have that wave that has a 80% in 7 days, kind of not even going north, or at least passing the islands, but more over here, which is further west. Let me actually back up a little bit. That might be a different wave, actually. Yeah, you know what? That's actually a different wave. I'll take that back. Here is what that wave that we're talking about, and then that's a different wave that starts developing south of Dominican Republic. Well, actually comes from, no, it's looking like actually it's coming from Venezuela. So, and again, moving forward, strong hurricane 962, kind of pulling an errand, going in between the Outer Banks and Bahamas. Move forward into the future, nothing really happens with that other wave. And then it starts developing something actually south of Jamaica. Starts intensifying, which I'm definitely expecting that for sure. If anything that goes through there at this point, a lot of heat content, super warm waters. I mean, starts developing it real fast. 964, 937, and then going through the west part of Cuba. And again, going through the west part of Cuba will not disrupt the system a whole lot, because the western part of Cuba, the mountains are kind of flat. They're not really steep mountains like that on the eastern side of Cuba. Now, if you guys, one thing that is very dangerous, if you have a strong storm like this going through there, there's something called an eddy. And it's like a warm, super warm temperature loop, like loop current. And we have seen it many times in the past where storms go through there. I mean, perfect example was Milton. Milton went through there, and it continued to rapidly intensify because it has even warmer waters than the Gulf. So if that happens, that could really intensify the storm. Now, obviously, this will be a best case scenario. It's gonna change, but I mean, a hurricane going through South Florida with 940 something pressure. I mean, that's very bad, obviously. So take it with a grain of salt. I wouldn't put too much weight on it. Now, if you go forward on the European, now the European starts developing that wave that is on near Puerto Rico right now. Gets it a lot closer to the United States, and once it gets to around latitude of Florida, I mean, it kind of, like weakens, and most likely that has to do with the fact that this storm here is stealing, for lack of a better word, some of the intensity, some of the heat content, etc. And then something starts happening, which is called the Fujiwara effect. You guys are gonna start hearing this more and more on social media. But basically, the Fujiwara effect is when two systems of low pressure start, they're near each other and they're fighting to try to get, basically intensify over the other. And a lot of the times they start kind of like this dance around each other, and that's basically what you guys saw here. You guys can see how they kind of rotate, and then the other storm goes, and 985 north of Bermuda. Now the European shows another, just a weak wave, just kind of coming from the Gulf. That's probably the kind of similar scenario, but obviously a lot weaker than what the GFS was showing. Now let's take a look at the AI version of the Euro. So basically, it does kind of like a similar scenario, Fujiwara, so you guys can see, but a lot weaker. Nothing really develops much as far as near Florida. And again, another weak wave just kind of going south of Florida. Not much happening there. And let's take a look at the Canadian. The Canadian, same thing. Shows a storm actually here, north of Cuba. And then it's just out to sea. And lastly, let's take a look at the icon. The icon basically shows the same thing, just a storm in the Bahamas, weak, but it shows a hurricane here, and potentially getting really close to for comfort, too close for comfort to Bermuda. So what I'm trying to point out here, guys, is don't put any weight on this forecast. Just keep an eye out. I will keep you guys posted, obviously, if anything changes. But right now, we just have this main wave to watch, which is potentially Umberto. And that's the next wave to watch, or the next name storm to get and watch. Thank you guys for watching. Subscribe. Don't forget to like this video. I will keep you guys posted. And if you guys would like to see anything different from these videos, anything in particular in the channel, let me know. Let me know in the comment section. I'm here to make whatever you guys want to watch, and the format that you guys want to watch. But I need to know. Appreciate you watching. Thank you so much. Have a good day.